right, we are running ragshaw here. I'm going to take a hot second, go grab my cup of coffee. There's the camera. But once I get back, we're going to get into doing some form reviews, checking out my squats. Actually, I don't have any squats to show y'all this week, but we're going to get into some form review. I think I got some chest press, some rowing, some RDLs. If you are having troubles with a lift, if you're feeling pain during a lift or during a movement, and you have a video of it, or if you can make a quick video of it, slide over to our subreddit. Let me see if I got the right fucking... Nope, that's the wrong one. There's the dogs. That, and then I just need to probably order that to the bottom. There we go. Check us out on our subreddit. Drop us a post on there, and then we'll review yours, or I'll review yours. Paul's out tonight, this morning. He's never here in the mornings. In any case, I'm going to fill up my coffee, and we'll get started just in a moment. Thanks for hanging out. Oh, where'd it go? Where'd it go? All right, y'all. Back in the saddle again. 28 viewers out there. That's awesome. 28 people we can help. Let me turn this fucker down. Get that like that. There we go. Oh, we got all the cameras. We got all the cameras. Let's see. We got this one straight ahead. I think that stays there. This one, we got the dogs. Excellent. We got everything. We got it all. Yeah, that looks all right. Now I can camera one, camera two, camera one, camera two. Wayne's World, was that what that movie was? In any case, I am John. Welcome to Grinding Gains, Caffeinated Critique. If you got your coffee, green tea, whatever makes you feel good. It's late at night. I know sometimes we get a beer chugging champion in here. You know, welcome. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your time. We are Range Fitness Online. What the fuck y'all doing in Twitch, y'all? This is a video game paradise. I feel you. I feel you. I'm a shitty gamer, but that's okay. I'm here. Paul here's on Tuesdays, trying to help people not be in pain. Physical pain, joint pain, muscular pain. If it's something to do with an infection or arthritis or things of that nature, right, you're kind of set with those. But if it's something doing with your musculars, with your joints, with your muscles, that's why we're here, is to help you again understanding those balances. A lot of us, when we play video games, we're sitting, whether it be in a chair, on the ground, in the couch, slumped, hunched, whatever kind of posture you may or may not have, that's going to dictate certain muscle agreements. And so we're here to try to help you understand those and teach you how to balance those out for yourself, so that way you can keep on doing whatever the hell it is that you want to do, right? I know there's a few what do they call them in Twitch, channels that are like really into small model painting. There's some that are doing other types of craft work. And again, it all puts us in these weird positions from time to time, especially when we do it hours on end. So if you're living with joint pain, if you're feeling that crankiness in the low back, you got knee issues, Your neck is always bothering you. You can't reach overhead. You find that you can't squat or deadlift, whatever it may be that you find restrictions. If it's muscular in nature, we're here to help you out with that. And so as a way to help y'all, every Thursday morning, I take about an hour, maybe 2 hours, depending on what my schedule's like, and go through our subreddit. We're a fledgling little community right now. It's just me. And occasionally I get my wife to give me a video to post on here for her. So if you have, again, a video that you want to get reviewed, maybe not today, but next week, the week after, feel free. Post them in here, and we'll get to them. So, without further ado, let's get to it. So the first thing we're going to be doing here, and I apologize, not the best angle, right? It's one of those things I get self-conscious trying to tweak my camera inside of the gym. So I'm starting off here with, if you've been watching the channel regularly, I can't see what the dogs are doing right now. They're face biting the hell out of each other. Let's see. I guess we need to probably bring that guy right about there. Right about there. See my sweaty calves. All right, so back to the video. Back to what we're all here for. This is a long one. So this is somewhere in the middle of my workout. Or order of operations, if you will. I like to do all of my leg. I like to do full body routine. And I like to do legs first. So whether it's squats, deadlifts, lunges, whatever it is, I always do those first. So here we're into some upper body work. Sweat dripping down my leg, as you see there on my shoe. God, that's gross. In any case, oh, y'all don't see it, so that's good. We're working on a pullover. And specifically, I'm working on a lat variation of a pullover. Let's see here. Get this in the up position. Go pause. So very commonly, you'll see pullovers done for chest. You may also see them done on a bench and things like that, but we can talk about that here in a moment. The variation I'm doing here is, again, intended to be in the lats. So first off, I'm using this easy curl bar. If you're not familiar with the easy curl bar, right? It's the one that looks like kind of like a W, or it's kind of whoop. It goes flat, and it goes whoop, and it goes flat. And the weights, right? There is no cheating with it if you think there's something of that nature. It's more just really beneficial for our wrist and the angles how our wrists work, especially when it comes to things like curls or other arm exercises. If you're not used to it, if you're a straight bar purist, you can explore it, try it out, see how you like it. Now, off of that caveat, where I coach this differently than probably most people is let's see, that's going to be a bad drawing. I want my elbows to be rotating inward. So however you want to landmark it, I like to sometimes think about my funny bone. I'll sometimes think about the bony prominent of my elbow tip, the articulating cap. And you want to pull through the shoulders, through your lats. And by this constant rotation of the elbows inward, you can see my right shoulder doesn't like it as much, I feel. Maybe. But in any case, trying to rotate our elbow, I gotta slide into the frame. There we go. Try to clean this up for a second. Not really square in the frame either. pardon. Guess that camera must be. In any case, that's a little better. So, arms in front, we're trying to create this rotation. I sometimes will cue clients like you're trying to do the YMCA. It's very weird because I'm looking at the camera, but I feel like off center. Anyways, we'll keep cooking. So that's kind of the motion we're trying to make, right? And so as we rotate our wrists wide, this gets our rear delts turned on. It's also going to help us again de-incentivize, if you will, your chest taking over the motion. Your elbows go wider. Nothing wrong with that if you intend for it to happen. And this is going to get more of a chest effort. Where I make the argument is for doing it this way is, one, we already spend a lot of time doing things this way, whether you realize it or not. And so it can be things like pressing yourself up from the desk, pressing yourself up from the chair. We do a lot of already this kind of internally collapsed chest positioning of our bodies. So trying to get ourselves externally rotated and stimulating muscle activation in there, right? Trying to get that activated for ourselves. And then this does a couple of things for the entire body, right? Oh, wrong place to be hitting Control Z, huh? Get back into the lift here, right? For many of y'all, you're gonna be like, damn, John, what about my back? Like, you didn't even talk about the back yet. So we want to make sure that we're drawing into the navel for setup, such that, again, our pelvis, I always draw as like a little triangle. We want it as a neutral pelvis as we can. And then again, we're trying to have our shoulders nice and square on the floor. It's a terrible line for squareness. Trying to have our shoulders square to the floor, right? Roughly square to the hips. And I cue people to flatten out, almost like it may feel like you're over tilting the pelvis. And that's all right. Get that a little bit going for yourself, especially if you have your feet up, as I do. All right, as you can see here in the pic. Go ahead and get that going for you. Now, everybody's going to be a little bit different, but for the general public, that's the way I would cue you. And then from there, we're going to get the shoulders flat. And the goal of this is to create length across the abdominal wall, to create length through the rib cage. But y'all ever see that movie Aliens? And they got them chest busters. We don't want our ribs to flare open. All right, so this is kind of this. And if you've listened to me talk before, I always kind of feel there's this oxymoronish, this kind of talking out of both sides of my mouth when I'm cueing. It's a yes, but, and but. Again, we're putting. We think about like I started off talking about posture. How do you sit? For most of us, we're going to sit with collapsed ribs, collapsed stomachs. I don't have like an angle for you to see that in. All right, but we're just going to be in these kind of slouched positions. So if we think about ourselves in a very crude sense, think of your body as like a cell phone guide tower or a power line tower. What color should we use? I guess we'll use the range fitness colors. Approximately squarish. We just zoom in more and then it doesn't fucking matter. All right. So if we think of our body, we got our little head, got our neck, giant fucking neck, shoulders, torso, hips, waist, all that. And here's our hips more so. Giant fucking hips. Whoops, too much. All right, this is not drawn to scale. Like a fucking Ken doll, okay? Leave me alone. Guess in more than one ways too, huh? Our arms, arms, legs. Well, we just get the upper half. In any case, so if we think of our body as this, if we have, for whatever reason, brevity, let's say over here, right? How do we erase this? All right, so that means if we, ideally, we could just copy and paste that shit, right? But if we're real short, let's say over here, that means we're going to be real long on the other side. And what do I mean by that? I mean this angle right here versus this angle here. So this would be the hypothetical, is like, say you sit on your right side a lot, or depending on which way your perspective is, or you could be sitting on your left side. Either way, doesn't matter. All right. And so our head isn't just going to sit here either, right? Our head's not going to stay neutral to the spine anymore. You get seasick as fuck, right? Think about your head walking around crooked. So your neck is going to crane as well, so that we keep our head roughly square. Kind of a mutant human being here, I know. Too thick. There we go. Get rid of that word piece. Irritating me. All right. So, and we get, because we, for whatever reason, whether it's because we're lean, whether our job just has us on that side, some people's workstations may be that way. You might be a server or a waiter, and so you're holding a lot of weight on this side, and as you fatigue, you start collapsing on that side. Whatever it may be, it's life. We're humans. We navigate the world. But the goal is for you to be aware of these habituations, so that way you can take some ownership over them versus them owning you. So the whole idea here, right, is because we have, if we think of this more now into the sense of the exercise, right, if we're in this always collapsed stomach, always collapsed belly, then you can understand why it makes sense for us to be as long in our midsection here as we possibly can. Now, the caveat of this always is, well, if some is good, more is better, right? What ends up happening, right, is if we start going too far, we take it to the other extreme. Well, now we're making compensations the other way. We're going to end up creating problems on the other side of the equation, if you will. So the idea will always be the sense of cross tension, and we got tension on both sides of a joint, right? Because if you think about it as like a tug of war, yeah, a tug of war. If both sides are pulling, right, you have this kind of back and forth seesawing. But when one side just completely fatigues out or just isn't trying anymore, right, you just get this kind of catapulting of the center. Well, think of the center as like your joint, and the two tug of war teams, right, those are your muscles. Now, when you act on your muscles, they must react with each other, and so there's a give and take, such that the joint stays in place, if you will, but we don't reshift it, or that there's not overdrive, if you will. So the way to think about this visually, or where am I? Rotate this guy. All right, so for our arm, the easiest way to see this or understand it, I feel, is to look at our elbows. And if we have a straight elbow, my bicep has to be in a long position, my tricep is in a shortened position. Right? So as I bend at my elbow, my bicep is contracting and my tricep is lengthening out. Now, if this tricep wasn't there at all, right, if I didn't have this tricep anymore, my arm is just stuck here. I would have to quite literally pry it against my bicep to undo it. And then if it was fatigued enough or there was something out here to resist it, right, it would stay out there. And so that's why we have this pull on both sides. So for my arm to be able to relax out here, it's because there's ever slight little, like your foot's on the gas pedal, just idling the engine. And then when we rev the engine a little bit, that's when we get movement occurring. And so that's a little bit of the idea of what we're looking for. And so sorry, come one more time, not to get you seasick. So think of it as like, because we're always in a collapsed stomach, collapsed ribs, think of it as like just this always closed, right? We get a overdevelopment of the abs, the short abs. Everything stays in that short position. Everything we would do would be in this short position. And so the way I try to coach people differently is putting us in these, what I always refer to as a weakened position. We are weak as fuck when we're not in these collapsed positions, because that's where we develop strength. That's where we've been working to be strong. So we get long in the stomach, we get long in the ribs, but we're tight throughout. As we learn how to create those core connections, that's how we create stability to our spine, to our hips, to our shoulders, such that we don't have compensations. And when we don't compensate, we don't get pain. All pain is a stacking of compensations that has gotten too much. And the body's like, hey, something needs to change. Well, let's look here. Let's see what we see. And we'll comment as we go. So for me, I'm watching right here, the top of my rib cage, because I know that's a spot I have issues with. Again, with it wanting to flare. Other things I want to watch for, again, are my elbow positionings. Do I see any change in the elbows as we're moving? Do they seem to stay relatively? And this is where I say it was kind of a bad shot, in that we don't really get to see the elbows as we go overhead. If you have particular issues with your shoulders, you will find for you to get your arm up overhead that you have to do more of a rotation of the elbow outward into that more of a chest exercise to get this position. So if that's you, you minimize first the weight and then also minimize the range of motion if you're trying to do this as a strengthening exercise. I am smoked. Damn. Sweaty too. So I superset this with, I chose kettlebell chest press. I like floor presses, and that helps give me positioning on my shoulders. But I like the kettlebells for a particular reason, that they rotate my arms a little bit outward and help me kind of get my wrist in that stacked position I'm looking for. And so in that sense, I was talking about the bicep tricep. If like the tricep wasn't there, I'd have to overpower the bicep. And I'm using kind of the similar principle in this case, is that because those weights are pulling my hands wide, it's kind of overpowering the muscles that would want me to be in collapsed. And so I'm kind of giving into those weights, trying to help them pull my shoulders broad and then create that pressing motion. Now, if you're not conscious of this, right, this will actually just develop more of this, because you'll go into that place already. What's happening a little bit is a proprioception trick. Your awareness, the body's awareness of itself. And so when we have something that pulls us wide from our homeostasis or our normal, right, it's going to naturally want to pull us back in. And so that's, again, a little bit of the game I'm playing here with this. And same is being applied as the previous exercise as far as setup. All right, stomach stays nice and tight. We're trying to keep the ribs from flaring as best we can. Keeping the shoulders nice and flat on the floor. Try not to let this shoulder pop up or roll forward as we get down. I am fatiguing. So this is where, again, things I need to improve on, right? You can see during And even as I'm tired, oh, y'all can't see it, so I don't need to talk about it. Never mind. I'm doing it perfect. We'll get to a smaller view here. So we watch kind of towards the end is my breathing. All right. In a perfect system, in a perfect world, we're breathing in through our nose and then a forceful exhale out. A tongue on the roof of your mouth and almost like you're trying to spit through. Whatever your rep is, it's power, it's strength, hypertrophy, whatever it is, working on, again, a forceful exhale. Doesn't mean the rep has to necessarily be faster, but not trying to let my jaw be all opened up and shit like that during the reps, but trying to be, again, as stoic as we can during the lift, especially on our face, because it doesn't really benefit the face at all, or the head, or any of it to be all tensed up in there. In fact, I always feel that leads to people with like TMJ or jaw issues. They likely are clenched very hard during their exercises or day-to-day lives, as well as maybe some other forward head positions. Yeah, and just working on keeping the mouth relatively closed and relaxed. So landmarks for you if you're working chest press, because I feel, one, I don't go over this enough with y'all. So again, I'm doing seated presses, or seated presses. I'm doing floor presses, so I'm here on the ground seated. I'm a big believer before you pick up the weights, try to get your body as positioned properly as you can. Not to go from like a crappy position and then try to work your way out of the crappy position with the weights in hand. Practicing is pristine setup before the weights are there, because once the weights are there, your body is going to adjust, so to speak. I always go back to this idea of a sail, like on a sailboat. I never sailed, but I can imagine you got this big old sheet up in the air, and if you only have one or two ends of it tethered, right, it's just going to be flopping out in the wind. Maybe you got a third side tethered, but it's not really where it should be, so it actually kind of goes out far sometimes, depending on which way the wind blows. But you can pull it back in from time to time. And again, as long as the wind blows in the right direction, it doesn't really bother it. But if it gets gusty, it might pop it out loose again. And that fourth end, you don't even think about it, right? You just think about that third one. And it's kind of convoluted, I apologize. But our bodies are the same way. We want to have all ends of the sails tethered down intentionally. We want to have our shoulders engaged, our stomachs engaged, our midsections, right? Because once we have all that stuff tapered down, not tapered, but tacked down, if you will, movement can only come from so many places. Hair's fluttering in the wind. Once we have our ribs engaged to where they're not going to be moved, once we have our hips set where they're not going to move, we have our shoulders in the sockets where they're not going to move around, right? Facilitating movement can only come from a few places. And those few places will be our desired targets, right? So we set up our shoulders, tension the shoulders, tall chest, stomach sucked in, and then I'm going to lean back. You're using dumbbells, right? You can put these on your legs as well to lean back with them. While I'm down here on the ground, I'm letting the weights, I'm letting myself be just on the ground. I'm getting my shoulders flat, find that core engagement again. And once everything's feeling secured, once I feel everything in its right place, as it were, then I begin to try to press through the prime movers. And in this case, is going to be my chest. Now, landmarks again is I'm trying to work to keep my wrist over my elbows the entire time. Doesn't matter the position. Doesn't matter if it's in the up or the down. And during this, you can notice that my forearms are going from my ribs up to my chest. So there's a bit of a taper, right? It's going from my sternum up towards my clavicle, right? Now, one thing you're noticing likely is that my elbows are not extending completely. And that's something I do need to work on. Part of this comes from my left arm. My left elbow does not, well, it's actually not too bad today, but it typically does not get as straight. Lefty here. Yeah. You can kind of see I can almost hyperextend this one where this guy is not quite as straight. Not really detrimental in my day-to-day life, but I broke this elbow years ago, and so I have to deal with this as a hyper shortened bicep, specifically the brachialis. If you care about such things, if we want the right, get this out of the way, maybe. When the fancier camera looks more grainy and not in focus, right? In any case, got distracted. I lost my train of thought. Chest press, great stuff. Elbow is not straightening out. So left elbow, bicep issues. And then my right shoulder, I'm really focusing on keeping this shoulder flattened to the ground. So a little bit of that is I'm losing mental focus on keeping and getting that lockout at the top without sacrificing. So those are things I'm going to need to really focus on. And the way I'm going to have to do that is when I get to the top of my rep, pausing here and double checking, like, can I get more elbow extension? Can I lock out those suckers at the top without sensing a change in my shoulder blade position? All right. Being hyper aware of how this area feels both at the top and the bottom of the lift. All right, again, you can see over here on my left elbow, much more of an acute angle. That's, again, something I need to focus on and work on that side for myself. But again, in general, at the bottom, we're trying to find this 90 degrees. I almost think of it as like an L shape with my arms, with the wrist, again, stacking over the elbows and maybe a little overly rotated here. Again, not the end of the world, but not ideal practice in the long term. Trying again, thinking the forearm, the knuckles, the wrist, the elbow, all stacked perpendicular, and those stay stacked the entire time. I've even cued sometimes having a cup of water like on your knuckles as you're pressing and thinking of just not letting that cup of water splosh around. All right, let's move on. So again, if you got a exercise that you've been getting pain in, or maybe you just got questions about how to do it ideally, properly, maybe you've noticed some things just kind of a little funky, you know, reach out to me. Again, we get you, have you post yourself up on the subreddit here. And then same as the range fitness. Just go whoop. Range fitness online. And post yourself a, they call it an anonymous post of your exercise. You got any, put any details into the description as far as maybe if you're feeling pains or what your questions or concerns are. All right, here. So what we're working here in this clip is a cable external rotation. I wonder if can I zoom in on this video? Is what it is. Let it roll. All right, so this is a cable machine, and I think I've got this sucker on the top pin. So very lightweight, very lightweight. So even like I was doing on the chest press, getting my tension between my shoulder blades, trying to again have that broad chest. And then I'm keeping my elbow right next to my ribs, right under my shoulder. Man, that is so grainy. How do I deactivate it. And we'll reactivate it. That seems to look somewhat different. I don't know. It still wants my microphone. That was a problem the other time though. I was not getting good audio quality. And that is a problem. Can't have bad audio quality. All right, let's focus on the problem at hand here. Rear delts. Cable fly. Or rear delt cables. So once you get yourself set up, again, thinking feet, knees, hips, all of it. This will probably be a better view to actually see what's going on. And keeping the elbow under our shoulder, keeping that tension between. And what in the description I even talk about it is, you want to, oh man, look at that hair. This fucking bitch got ripped. Pulling the wrist, it looks like my wrist is going wide, but I'm really focused on is rotating my bicep, rotating my arm. And in that way, we're really activating back into here. All right, so the space in between here never changes. Set up positionally, my elbow is actually, if this is my shoulder, right, it's not going to be directly underneath. Right, we actually want it to be slightly forward. Whoa. Almost like it picks up on some of the lines, and interesting. Maybe that's what was happening earlier. Any case. Right, and so again, the other thing I see commonly done wrong with this is people bring their elbow across their hip. Our elbow is still going to be, as you see my shoulder blade. Good God. Got my shoulder blade right here, or armpit crease. So if we think about that armpit crease, and then there's just this imaginary plane. All right, we don't want the elbow to cross that plane in or out. I don't know if that makes sense or helps anybody out there. And God, so many Control Z's. And so if we think about what muscle we're working, it's this little guy back here in the rear delt. And so if he's there, can I change anything about? I don't think so. All right, so I always get this kind of dis backwards, but I think it's just the origin is back here, and it inserts right there. And so it's pulling from the insertion to the origin. I always think of it as alphabetical. I think it's alphabetical is the insertion to the origin. Anyways, this is this thing. It's got an anchored point, and then it pulls away. The furthest point of the anchor point is what gets pulled towards the anchor, right? Makes sense. And so what we want to think of is we're activating this guy. And so just like this remote here, if I were to try to pull it across here, it'll rotate, right? And it's that same idea is we're just trying to pull through there. And then we get back to zero, or our start point, by virtue of that cable, right? It's gently pulling us back the other way. Now, again, I said I'm on the lightweight here. I think it's like 5 pounds, 6, maybe 7 pounds. And what you'll see, especially as I fatigue, you see this other hand here. All right, and so I'm assisting myself. I'm giving just a few ounces of extra assistance with my offhand. So that way I can still get that pulling. So I can still stay in my posture and still get as much range of motion as I can through the exercise. One of the reasons I really like this exercise is you can start having this little bit of variation to really put on the last little bit of poo-poo on your shoulders. And if you're doing this as a warm-up, I find this is a great way to kind of tune up the shoulders and get them ready for any type of, if you do a true bro split, this is a good way to tune up the shoulders. So right now you can't quite see it, but I'm using my hand more of as a sensory proprioception tool, making sure that my shoulder still feels like it's sitting back and not rolling forward or collapsing on myself. So those are going to be other cues and other ways for you to, again, check yourself. See if you're doing what you think you're doing. And then this goes twofold. This is going to do a lot of things for us. One, it's activating a very commonly underutilized muscle. Rear delts, again, get a lot of, let's call it bitch work. They don't get a lot of love. And then when they do, we commonly don't work them in a position that they're able to get worked in efficiently, right? We either put too much weight on them, so we have to use a lot of momentum to generate it. While there is a little bit of contraction and there's some benefit, for a lot of people, that's just going to set them up for compensation and pain. The other side of this is we typically don't address the anterior at all. And so part of, call it my recipe, my programming, is this is done. I did this right after my pullovers and chest presses, the kettlebell chest presses. So there is a little bit of pre-fatigue to maybe my shoulder complexes as already. But I've also, again, really tried to hit hard a lot of this anterior stuff so that these muscles are going to be a little bit more welcoming to the challenge. All right, let's get to our next one. Right. So if I'm looking at this for my own benefit or my own improvement. All right, if this is you, again, big focus is going in keeping that foot or feet in a good position. And I think the biggest thing I saw is maybe here towards the end, it looks like we might be a little bit of sway back occurring. All right, we're just getting tired. And so just keeping mindfulness of, even as we get into these later exercises, these end workout time frame, still working to keep our pelvis neutral, still keeping our shoulders neutral with each other. All right, here you can even see my toe a little bit rolling over. All right, so working again our flat feet. All right, and we have a slight bend to our knees. We're not locking out necessarily, or ever lock out your knees. Like I said earlier, again, are we in a neutral pelvis? Because we have this load pulling us, this way. Do we feel that we're fighting that? Do we have too much weight on here for our core engagement, right? And that's something people don't always think about, right? They'll go deep on the pin, and they use their whole body to try to lawnmower it or something. Right? This is still a chance for us to work our core. This is still a chance to work our entire body as a system, not just this singular implement, right? Not just this arm, not just this one muscle. It's this one muscle has to coordinate with all of this. Or at least that's how we should do it. Because this is going to, again, affect, everything's connected. Everything in our body is connected. And so how we engage our core will change the position of our shoulders, thus change how we're able to engage that guy. All right. Get off of that, Grandpa. Move on. Seated rows here. So not my favorite handle here, and those lights are kind of crappy for us here today, but we're going to make what we can from it. So rowing, to me, rows are the exact opposite of a horizontal press. Horizontal rows are nothing but horizontal press in reverse. All right. Now, that doesn't mean necessarily you're using your chest for this, or that you should use your chest, right? We're still pulling through the lats. We're still pulling through the shoulders, the upper back, the mid back. Those are still the pull muscles. But if you think of the movement as a cookie cutter shape, that position right here, right? The same position as this. At least from our shoulders. If I had the power of rotating this sucker, I would. I guess I probably can, huh? Will this let me rotate it? No, this is just cropping. Good enough. That's undo. Ah, we're learning. We go back into paint. $90. Very good. And then we'll minimize. Beautiful. Beautiful. Yes, sir. All right. So this is what I mean by this. This is, again, so I always say there's 7 exercises that you have to know to work out or to get a full body routine. There's 7 movements. I'm working on right now creating little videos going over those with kind of step-by-step instructions. So if that's something you're interested in, feel free to hit us up in the comments, hit us up in chat, give me a little emoji or thumbs up or something. If, how-to videos or something that you'd be interested in. And we'll be publishing those on YouTube as once I get a couple of them going. There's all kinds of exercises. There's all kinds of modifications. There's all kinds of implements and tools out there. But if we can just reduce it down to 7 movements: hip hinge, deadlift, squat, lunge, horizontal press, vertical press, horizontal pull, vertical pull. Still, John, that's a lot of fucking shit. That's 7 things I gotta learn. Fair. Well, you're gonna have to hip hinge on every lower body exercise you do. Whether you're doing like a Romanian deadlift or a full conventional deadlift, it starts with a hip hinge. You're squatting, guess what? You're gonna start with a hip hinge. You're lunging, guess what? You're gonna start with a hip hinge. So while hip hinge, I do separate it and kind of classify it as a deadlift, it's really just the precursor to the other 2. It's really incorporated in all of them. So really, you're just learning 2 things. It's just that important we separate it. And deadlifts. Upper body. 4 items. Horizontal and vertical pressing, horizontal, vertical pulling. All they are, again, they're opposite engagements of the same motion. So we can copy and paste the form, the position, the whatever you want to think of it, however you think of it. But if you can copy and paste it, and you just know that, well, when I think of pushing, I'm using the front side. And when I'm pulling, I'm using the back side. Done. Easy peasy, right? And then to know if we're doing it right, again, it's just we try to maintain and find that sense. This is, again, putting ourselves in a good externally rotated position of our shoulders. It's allowing our abdominals and our ribs to be in lengthened positions under tension. I'm having tension on both my abdominals and my back side, my anterior and posterior. And when we get to the both finishing positions, they're going to be approximately the same. Arms out in front, wrist, elbows, shoulders all in a line. Let's see what else we can glean from here. Now, one of the things a couple of things is this setup here. I like this setup here. I'm not watching like the handle I didn't like about it, but So in the sense of getting yourself prepped, getting your body in order and ready to lift. A lot of times I find and see is when people get into a seated row, we plant our butt where we want to be. We put our feet in there and then we do this really long stretch and then like do this really terrible pull to get this giant stack up. And then we start rowing. This little hair thing is just, hey boys, how are you? And this takes me back to the saying I bring up all the time is a long muscle. What is it? What's a long muscle? Mine's out of the gutter. But a long muscle is a weak muscle. A short muscle is a strong muscle. So let's say this, we're working our lat rows, right? Which is a big muscle of our body. Big weights is typically what we use. And if you're going and reaching it all the way out where your back is completely lengthened out, you're collapsing the stomach, so your low back is really rounded out. Your hips are flexed extremely to get there as well. And then hey, what are you pulling through? You're going to have to pull through your low back. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't lift through your low back. I'm not saying you shouldn't strengthen your low back. I'm saying you shouldn't exceed the massive weight that your low back really ought to be lifting. And then from a position that really isn't ideal. It's a really good, it is ideal if you want a hernia. It's ideal if you want a herniated disc. If that's what you're looking for, like keep trying to be collapsing your stomach and lift up. That's effectively what we're training. And so what you'll see me try to do is I get my body and I wedge myself in here. All right, I get my feet close. I get the handle, get my feet close. I'm setting my shoulders. And then I press with my legs like a deadlift up and out. Right. So I use my leg muscles more so to get that final positioning. It's not that I can't. I think I'm like using 50 pounds. Right. It's not the end of the world for my low back to be able to do something like that. I'll be showing a Romanian deadlift later with me using the 45-pound bar. Right. So that's not the issue in itself. But it's that repetition, that practice. And then let's add to that we're tired, right? And so because we're fatigued and we get into these crappy positions, right? That's when, again, we can easily set ourselves up for a pull or a sprain. So just be mindful of that as you set up. Your setup is just as important as the exercise. It's what I will tease as the exercise within the exercise. All right, enough preaching. So how do we pull? All right. Cueing again through the shoulders first, and then the arms come through. All right, we're going to pull between the shoulder blades, feel my chest reach, and then dragging my elbows towards my mid back. Get a pause shot here for a moment. We can doodle on it. Doodle. Those lights, man. I know they're nice when you're in there, but one, I know the camera's not square to me, but I'm just trying to see lines, and plus these lights make it kind of hard for me to see stuff. All right, so for a general pull, right, like I was saying, we want to make sure we're feeling a lot of engagement through here. We want to make sure our shoulders are scooping back. And then the other thing I'm trying to look for and pay attention to is, again, the elbows rotating in. And then again, the prime mover we're trying to feel is our lats. I always kind of tease people. It's kind of like the garter, the old Victorian corset that sits on you. It has like a little connection back here and a little connection back here. Your lats have these two connections. One is to your low back. Basically what I'm really badly trying to show you. You have a connection of your lat to about here, and then there's another connection of the lat out to the side. but it's this big fan of a muscle on either side of you. Right. And they run all the way up technically into here, into the top of your humerus. Up and through. And so when we pull, those guys are pulling from this really kind of disadvantaged position, it seems, but it is what it is. Otherwise, you'd have webbing all the way out to your elbow like a bird, right? But it's pulling up from our armpit into the top of your humerus here. And so that pull, we want to make sure that shoulder is moving into that back socket and not just tilting forward. Because your lats will do that too, right? And then your lats are just this forward tilt muscle as well. And that gets a lot of people into problems as well. Cues I think about, and I encourage you to clients to work about this as well, is this idea of thoracic expansion. God damn, this hair is just something else today. Can I shove it under something? Or do we just make it worse? All right, but the sense of reaching the chest, right? Like pushing your chest up and out as much as you can. We're not trying to hyperextend into the low back, and that is a common thing that can happen and occur. Right? Being mindful of it. That's why I always say, be mindful of this shit. That way you can do something about it or not. Right. Now, same idea here on when I was doing this setup, if you will, is this is after I've done the chest press. This is after I believe I've done maybe even the rear delt flies. Now, ideally, probably have been better to do these before the rear delt flies, and that maybe the rear delts are a little bit fatigued. But I'd make the argument of trying to use them as, like, if this is my own gym, I may have done the rear delt flies as a superset as a part of my rows. But there's other people around. Cable equipment, it's always a highly sought after piece of equipment. So, don't want to be too hoggish. And trying to sense what's going on my right. This is my right shoulder. I know is my problem child. So I'm always kind of hyper fixated on it, trying to see what the differences are left to right. See, to me, I just don't feel like I'm getting the shoulder pulling inward as much, the shoulder blade. That's what I was also trying to look at earlier, and I got distracted. But I feel here we can see the big difference left to right. Here we can kind of see there's a little bit of a bulge here. But what I find even more interesting, what do you all see? What do you see different left to right? Besides, maybe I'm sitting crooked. I'm going to blame it on my camera. My camera is crooked. But left to right, what do we see different besides this little bulge here? Do you notice how the pond has more ripples on the left side than on the right side? All right, we got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Here we got like 1, 2, 3, 4. Now, I get it. My shirt doesn't have to be completely symmetrically rippled. But again, we can see all the little ripples here. And there's some right here. There's some right here. But by and large, right, there's not as much going on right through there. I forget it. Like all the little ones take a lot more to erase. And so this again highlights a little bit of lack of shoulder stability for me. Highlighting my inability to get that scapula to really pull in. So that's got to beg a question. Why? wonder what that distance is too. That'd be, don't have angle for that, but it'd be interesting. Seems like it's wider. So why is this happening? And very likely, and it's, I know it's this, but it's going to be brevity through, again, this right complex. Part of it is, again, me sitting here at this computer desk. It tends to let my shoulder wants to fall forward. Especially, I've been playing some Total War 2 lately, so I get drawn into looking at the computer or trying to see what's moving where or whatever it might be to play my silly game. Driving, I tend to drive with my right hand over top. This is probably a bigger culprit just because it's more active and there's pushing and pulling occurring. But again, this tenses up this kind of upper pec region, this upper delt region. And again, puts me into a lengthened place out here, even kind of lifting the scapula up and off of me some. So that's going to be another thing. It's one of those other things I'm constantly trying to be mindful of. But, you know, God only knows how many years I've been trying to drive or been driving that way. And there's going to be other things as like I enjoy playing guitar and I play an acoustic guitar. So that even creates more of this internally rotated, this forward tilted shoulder. And then, you know, that could be 20, 30 minutes of me being in that position nonstop. So making sure I take time to unwind will also benefit me in this as well. So that's why we look at these things. That's why I'm paying attention to this, because I want to be able to play guitar and not have shoulder pain or ice picks through here or having things going on in through my upper neck. I want to be able to go play or roll jiu-jitsu and not feel like I'm going to just explode my shoulder joint when someone puts me into some sort of shoulder lock. So being mindful of these little inconspicuous, innocuous Sunday newspaper spot the difference bullshit. But this is going to be in telling me a story of what could be becoming. It's definitely telling me a story about what's going on underneath the skin, right? So today when I go to the gym, this is again going to be one of my big focuses, is trying to open up my chest as much as I can on this right side, especially with kind of what I'm looking at here. I may even look more towards kind of my nipple area, my nipple line of my pec, working on some palpation or some tissue, soft tissue work into that region. Oh my God, John, you said don't. So yes, ideally, right, you'd kind of let the weight pull you in if it was heavy enough, or if it did. Now, because one, it wasn't really doing that for me. Again, you want to just go as controlled and easy as you can. You know, and at any point, you can always let this thing go, and the weight stack will slam. Not ideal, but if you can get just a nice slow letting it out, I don't see anything wrong with it. I just want it to stay in there for a long duration. Right, because again, we are committing to a very shortened hip flexor position. Right, we're getting to this overextended, lengthened back position. It is nice to get a little bit of stretch on the lats to set them out, but again, be as controlled through there as you can. The other side of this is eccentrically, when we elongate our muscles. That's how I remember it. Right, we have a little bit more strength in that phase of the contractions, if you will. It's not really, I guess it's a contraction. The eccentric contraction versus the concentric contraction. Right, so when we're pulling, the body actually kind of down regulates or has less available strength versus when we lengthen out. Now, I've always liked the idea of, right, we do want to run as fast as we can, but we got to be able to stop as fast as we can too. Right, if the edge of the cliff is coming, you want to be able to stop as fast as you can. And so that's kind of the idea. So our bodies were much stronger. From what I remember reading, it was estimates of around 25% stronger in the eccentric. You can't do a pull-up. What are you coached to do? Negatives. The eccentrics. Right? You get to the top of the pull-up bar and you allow yourself down. probably the only place we ever see eccentrics done as a regular effort. But it should be, or as a conscious effort. But eccentric efforts should always be a part of your movements, especially into deadlifting, because y'all fuckers be skipping that shit. All right. Kind of flying through it today, but that's okay. That's okay. Before we get to this last one, I actually gotta go potty. I don't know if I approved it. Well, now it's approved. I'm gonna run to the pot and get a last little bit of cup of coffee. If you're enjoying the show, please give us a thumbs up, like. If you haven't followed or subscribed, whichever is free, do it, please. Please. So that way we can help others. Again, our whole thing is helping people get back to what they enjoy and love. Believe movement is medicine, as corny and dopey as that is. And I believe a lot of times we have a lot more control over the pains that we deal with than we realize. So, without further ado, I'm going to go run to the restroom, get some more coffee, and then I'll be right back. Should I give y'all a little message of he'll be back, guys. Just wait right there. There we go. I just thought maybe we just make the dogs really big, huh? What up? We's back. Shady's back. Back again. Oh, no. Don't remove them. Don't remove the dogs. We want to keep the dogs. Barky says he's warm. Hot in here. All right, let's get to this last one. See how it's going. So, this is actually the beginning of the workout, whereas what we were watching here towards this was the end of the workout. You gotta love, continuity. All right. So I'm currently, the last couple of phases or videos that I've been showing with y'all, this video is no longer available. How is that possible? Or am I out of internet? This is interesting. We have internet. May not be great internet, but we have internet. All right, let's see this again. So I'm switching phases in my workout routine now. So I was working on, call it max strength or max lifts. So I was trying to get heavy weight, so to speak. Heavy relative for me and what I'm able to work with. Now, during that time, I was noticing I was talking earlier about my right shoulder winging. And so twofold now is I'm working on really wanting to address this right shoulder blade and trying to keep it in good position. And then I'm also wanting to work into getting into a more power effort. And so what I'm going to work on this next little phase is actually going to be hypertrophy, strength, endurance aspect with a high degree of focus on my right shoulder. So my exercise selections will probably be things to be really focusing on scapular depression and retraction. Probably going to be trying to focus on a lot more pressing, both horizontal and vertical, and more pulling senses, and maybe not as much leg devotion as I've had in the past, which is fine. So here, as I grade a deadlift, squat, hinge, whatever the movement is, to me, it all is about them hips. Them hips don't lie, right? So landmarks. Be licking his asshole over there, making all kinds. Or I guess it's his foot. He's making loud noises. So big landmark through the entire movement for at least Romanians and a pure hip hinge is the sense of our knee staying over the ankle. Now you might cue this or think of this as your knee not moving or your knee not bending, despite there being an angle. I get that. It's very often how I would cue that is don't bend your knee, just sit back. But really what I'm trying to get after is that sense of a perpendicular shin, the knee staying over the ankle. And so the exercise is all about moving our hips backwards. And in some ways, you can almost think of this as an isolation lift. It's not really true in the purest sense. But you could think of this as, again, like almost like a bicep curl for the body. Again, very terrible analogy, but you can get the idea. Now, when I'm watching someone do this, and I'm trying to figure out, are they doing it well? Are they doing it right? Any of that kind of a thing. These are my landmarks that I'm watching for. And then I'm using something in the background to help me gauge this, right? And so a lot of times for myself, like I'm using the rack. And so you just want to look for that booty eclipse. Oh, well, thank you, dietary acids, but we don't want... Oh, y'all listen to me now. Y'all have the best viewers on Stream Boo, huh? Y'all no longer have cheap viewers. Well, we have high value viewers, and we don't pay for viewers here. So you're going to make me now stop what I'm doing so I can ban your ass. Wrong one. See, you fuck with a small streamer who has nothing better to do. Oh, it says I'm already in this one. So we'll take the time and help you out, dietary acids. Welcome back, RFO John. Well, good to be back. It has been a while since we've streamed. how do we do this? We're going to go full over here. We are going to, I think we'll report. Yep. Report it. What is it? Spam. Done. Spam. What is it? Stream boo crap. Done. Block this user. We're going to block this user. Block this user. All right. I always forget how to. I just want to kill the chat. What do we do with this? Replying to, no. I'm gonna warn, mod, unblock. I just want to delete it. Delete, unban. No, fuck that. Ban their ass. Whatever. Let's get back to the show. So as I'm looking or watching a hinge, and this is going to be with a squat as well, and a lunge, right? Just the sense of trying to create visual landmarks for ourselves to see movement, because it's easy to kind of lie to ourselves. All right. So again, everything's nice and tight from the time I picked up the bar. Just me collecting life and thinking about things, I guess. And we're trying to sit back into the hips. And things I'm looking for, right? And so I said I'm looking for the hips to continue to go back. But this is in conjunction with two things. I want to see the hips going back at the same rate we see the bar going down or the chest coming down, right? We want those all to be moving in sync. There shouldn't be just the hips moving and the bar is moving faster, right? There should be an even rate of movement between the two. Very commonly, we get to a point where we feel tension back in the hamstrings and the glutes. And then we end up reaching the bar. We let go of the tension between the shoulder blades. We let go of the tension of our stomach. And we collapse and we round a lot of times to get to those places. Bowser Big Bean Burrito. What up, man? Or person. It's quite the emoji you have there for us today. I appreciate it. See, Bowser Big Bean Burrito. The kind of value viewer we enjoy. Stream Boo could take some notes from you. I don't want them to, because then, then I actually might have to pay for viewers. Get more charming people like Bowser Big Bean Burrito. Hope you're doing well today. How are your lifts going? Your exercise journey? When I'm watching again someone's lifts, are the hips moving at the same rate as the bar, or do they move at different rates, or independently even? And then the same thing's going to be on the way up, right? Can we reverse the way we came? Now, some other landmarks, if you're starting out with these, or if you're just trying to figure out your body, is a sense of keeping that bar close to us as we're going down. You can't quite see my feet because of the beam here, but letting that bar end up somewhere over the middle of the foot. Now, to find your depth, again, we don't have any weights on this bar. There's nothing like to give me a visual or a physical cue. And this is where it's all about, is about us feeling. This is where I always sing to my clients that silly song, which you can't stop this feeling deep in my bicep femoris. Right? We want to feel that stretch sense. And once you start feeling that stretch in that posterior, that's your spot. That's where we're going to pause. That's where you need to pause. And then, as always, with any leg exercise, getting that big drive through the ground, push through your feet, push, 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 push to drive the hips forward and through. Now here at the top, right? Notice again where I'm pausing, where I stop. Do I push my hips into the bar? Sure. But what I'm not doing is letting my shoulders go way back here and my hips go way back up there. Right? We're not creating this hyperextension in our low back. This is, again, commonly where people go wrong is we get to the top and we just go. We take this moment to relax, to let everything go untensed. And, you know, it happens. I do it. It's hard. Like, there was no one ever told me that, like, this isn't a breaking moment. This isn't a pause moment. So you're working on a test in school and you have questions 1 through whatever. You get done with question 1 and there's always like this little mental, and then you get to read the second question. This is different in that you don't really take that little mental, it's from 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 to 6 to 7 to 8 to 9, and on you go. And the more you can get to that even flow, that less respite. Like if we look at lifting tempos, like a 4-2-2 tempo, right? It's 4 seconds down, a 2-second pause at the bottom, 2 seconds up. What's missing from that equation? How long we stand up and pick our nose at the top. Meaning, as soon as you're at the top, the next rep should start. It shouldn't be this moment of we just kind of let loose, distend, collapse, right? It is a moment where we keep everything as tense as it was and we hop right back into it. And so trying to be as rigid about that as you can takes your exercises. You wonder why your workout might take an hour. Try doing things like that, and it might end up being 45, 30 minutes, and then you're already feeling the same exhaustion. And you might have to go lighter weight, and that's not a bad thing. Remember, the weight, your body doesn't know what the fucking weight is. Your biceps aren't going to be like talking shit about you because you use the 10-pound weights versus the 25-pound weights. That's all that gray matter up in here that gets in our way. Challenge the muscle, stress the muscle. It doesn't care how it gets stressed. Just stress it appropriately, create adaptation, create change, right? So, top of the lift, we want to think of our stomach. Sorry, I always not sure. But again, our abs should be this wall. And so as we are contracting our glutes and squeezing our hamstrings and our quads and everything, as we're pressing as hard as we can into the floor, let's think about it, right? It's, yes, our hips are in this horizontal motion, but what we're really doing is trying to lift the bar up. So we want all of our force to go up. Anything that goes forward is wasted energy. Is potential for us to lose balance and stability. So we're not going to be as powerful in that regard. If that's something you're working on, you need to use something like a sled, right? Something that you can drive out and into. Big Bean Burrito wants you. But if we can keep that sense of pushing down through the ground, driving the hips forward into the bar, your abs act as this natural wall or kind of shield, and you'll hit into it, and you'll find for you to get any more hips driving forward into the bar, you have to let go of your abs, and then you'd have to hyperextend into the low back, all of which are compensations. Mic drop. I think I've said enough on that, huh? So even after I just kind of get on my soapbox about just getting into it and going, right? Even me, I take these times and I'm trying to reassess and kind of sense things out. When you get to your working sets, for sure, trying to build that just consistent movement, just like a machine. This little hair strip thing is kind of, I want to chop that fucker off. Sit over there. And for your warm-up sets or your first kind of sets, these are great opportunities to just see what your body has available. Not as far as like total output, but what's your mobility like? Are we connect? Hips, 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 hips. There we go. Are we able to, again, have that movement as we desire? Or do we feel like we have a little bit of a hiccup? Do we feel maybe something not quite right? You know, it could just be that, you know, we sat funny on the car ride in, or maybe life. And so we just don't feel quite as clean as we think we ought to. Now, the other thing, if we look at, let's see here. So this last rep, right? We're getting the bar about, it's about the width of the hand there, right? A little cursor hand. We're able to make that out. If we come up, once we get the bar, we see here, right? So at the beginning of the set, I caught it going up a little bit, but we see over the progression of this set, I actually am able to achieve a deeper range of motion. And that's what I want to highlight for you on your workout, on your warm-up sets, when you're working out. I was looking at the dog cam and I didn't see one of them. Where the hell did he go? And so part of our warm-up sets is like greasing the groove, making sure we feel the right things working, make sure we don't feel any discomforts. But that we make sure we open up as broad a range of motion as we can. That we don't shortchange ourselves in mobility just so we can start slapping on heavier weights and getting moving. And trust, this after my own warm-up of I think it was about 5 minutes of a rower, right? And you come and hop in on something like this, you will start getting whatever it is workout sense that you're looking for. But what you'll get that you're not getting now, right, is the difference between that, which is just below my knee, and there where we're, you know, about 3 or 4 inches, a little bit lower here. And we're not compensatory, we're not compensating to get there, right? We're creating more length in the glutes, we're getting more strength in the hip flexors turning on to get ourselves into that deeper position. And then we go into some more strength training, trying to mimic and get back to this position as deep as you can. Where we see people doing ego lifts, right? And they put too much weight on the bar. One, if they are going to go to an appropriate depth without any compensations, it's not going to be as broad of a depth, and that's fine. That just is what it is, though. The second aspect of it, though, is if they do go to what they think is their full depth, to get out of there, they're going to have to use some funkiness to get themselves out. There's going to be a big compensatory motion to be able to actually exit the lift, if you will, or to make the lift, let's say. And then, again, this is my soapbox. I get it. But there are exercises within the exercise. On your workout sheet, on your workout log, this is going to be labeled as Romanian deadlifts. But there's a lift before the Romanian deadlifts, and there's a lift after the Romanian deadlifts. Putting that bar off the rack and putting it back on the rack. So even here, this bar is super light for me. I know it is. I'm choosing it to do it as a warm-up. However, I'm still paying it the respect, still giving that moment of setting my shoulders, setting my core, engaging through the legs to make the lift. Every good rep benefits my posture, benefits my joints, helps me create that motor neuron pathway thing, right? That muscle-mind connection. Creating the habits of good engaged movements versus kind of sloppily haphazard motions. Doing this translates to how you pick up your groceries. This is going to translate to how you pick up your kids. This is going to translate to how you pick up big, heavy shit out in your life, because you've gotten an extra two reps per set of thinking and engaging your mind with your body and being mindful of where you're putting the load, so to speak. That sounds so wrong. Holy hell. of how you're engaging your muscles. Right? So when we lift up the bar, I'm engaged through my back, through my core, and trying to drive through the legs, even though it'd be very easy to lift up through the back. And then as we get done with the lift, and this is the harder one, right? Is we're fatigued, we're tired. We just want to just drop that fucker down or let it go crashing in. Especially on your fucking first set. Have that in a little bit of, call it character. But still set it down. You can still allow gravity to pull it, but you control the descent. And notice this should look relatively same as we were here. Right? Or here even. Right? We choose any kind of portion, we catch ourselves in the lift. This should look very similar to that. That was actually a pretty good little cut there, huh? Right? I'm setting up. Anyways, you get the idea. But this applies to anything in the gym, right? You got dumbbells. You're going to be picking them fuckers up. Set your shoulders. Get close. Use your legs. You're going... I don't have video of it, but when I go get this easy curl bar, right? I still set up and get it that way. So again, just find those little moments for yourself. Build those habits in that manner, because it's just like diet change, right? You all know what you're not supposed to eat. We all know. We don't need to be eating fucking McDonald's. We don't need to be eating all the sugary treats. We need to be eating less, saturated fats, eating more omega-6s, get the nice, pink fish, the bright colored fishes, and you need to eat more vegetables, bright green leafy vegetables. We know these things. But you got to make small changes, because if you just put a whole plate full of broccoli and salmon, you probably aren't going to like it. Let's face it. You might eat it once and you're like, this is good. And then you're never going to eat it again. Plus, it's probably going to be too much for you as well. So you got to find that balance. And so you start off by just putting a little bit of the good stuff on your plate. And over time, right, more of the good stuff starts being on your plate and less of the bad stuff. And then you have leftovers that you end up taking and stuff of that nature. Treat exercise the same way, right? You're not going to have perfect posture all the time. You're not going to lift every time with perfect posture. But when you're in the gym, why are you there? What is the purpose of being at the gym? It might be to get a little jiggly bubbly butt like Bowser Big Bean Burrito showed us here in the chat. You might have some other aspirations, goals, or just things that you enjoy about life that you feel the gym is a requirement for. If you're having pain or difficulties with your joints or muscles, right? That's why we're here. We're here to help those who are in the gym having pain and know there's something not right about that. So if that's you, feel free to, again, reach out to us. We're here Tuesdays evenings. We've been off the last couple of weeks. We've been having some ideations, business meetings, so to speak, about how we're trying to create the channel and move forward. But Tuesdays, it's me and Paul. If you have a pain that you want some help with, feel free to come out and just chat with us. It's a little bit of an ask us anything. We mostly just go on about whatever. So come in, interrupt us, and make the show about you. And we'll help you out with whatever pains or movements you got going on. The other thing I would say is this morning, Thursday mornings, hop on into our subreddit, posts yourself exercising, whatever the exercise is, push-ups, overhead presses, pull-ups, horizontal presses, bent over rows, deadlifts, squats, lunges, even if you want to do pistols for some godforsaken reason, bicep curls, front raises, any exercise, calf raises, right? Put them up there. Let me know. And if you got pain, put it in there. If you're having some sort of movement, like it feels wonky or just not right, or maybe you notice the next day after a workout, you notice a lingering discomfort or pain in a joint, put that in there. Let us know, and I'll help you out. That's why we're here. Till next time, y'all. I'm John, as always. I guess RFO John, based on my terrible channel name. But until next time, stay mindful as fuck and don't compensate. Thank y'all. Have a great one. Bowser Big Bean Burrito, thank y'all. Any lurkers out there, appreciate y'all being here tonight. I don't know why it's tonight. It's today. Fucking 7 a.m., 7:30.
Be well, y'all. Thank y'all.